And remember, only you can prevent forest fires.
Hey, good morning, McLaughlin Science students. Hey, I wanted to share with you a new term I learned. It is called smize, and to smize is to smile with your eyes. So in these times, when we communicate with our faces and you got a mask on, you can work on your smize. I need some work on my smize, but that's a smize, new term for you. Okay, hey, this is Mr. Weber, and I'm gonna be also teaching you about a little science. So, here we go. So I want you to get your science notes out. And what we have been learning about are the characteristics of living things. So the last thing we learned about was the 7 characteristics of all living things, whether it's a bacteria, an elephant, a fish, a plant, a piece of moss, all those living things, they all have 7 characteristics in common, okay? While we do this, today, I want you to think about how does a virus meet these 7 characteristics. So, we're going to title this the virus lytic cycle. All right, so if you were to get sick, you were to get a virus, let's say that you inhale near somebody that just sneezed, and that virus gets into your lungs. Eventually that virus, we'll draw a little picture here. So we'll say step 1. So you're going to draw this as I'm drawing it. So anything I draw, you draw. Okay, so step 1. We have, we'll call him Sammy. And let's see, Sammy had more of a box body. And these boxy arms. And boxy legs. All right, and the virus goes into Sammy's lungs. And it's gonna eventually go into a cell. Now, not all cells are round, but we tend to draw them like this. So, on the cell, so there's a circular cell. So this is like a blown up version, like if we were looking at a microscope inside of a lung and we found a cell, this would be the cell that we're looking at. And then here's the virus. They look like little alien spacecraft ships. Not all of them look like this, but this one's gonna look like that. And then we're going to draw a little squiggly in there, and that squiggly is either going to be DNA or RNA. It is the code, what we call the code of life. But it is the code that will help engineer a virus, and it is also a code that will code a living thing, a cell. So there's the DNA or the RNA. We should label this, everything. Virus, labeling this, we'll say it's DNA for today. All right, and then step 2, we're gonna do right here, step 2. Draw another cell. Draw the virus. But this time we're going to leave the inside of the virus blank, we're going to draw an arrow, and it might be good to have another color so you can see this. There's the arrow that's showing that the DNA is now being inserted into the cell. And inside the cell has its own DNA, and that is stored inside the nucleus. And so we're going to label that nucleus. And we're going to do a double helix DNA here. We're doing a human cell, and this DNA is going to come into this cell, and in the lytic cycle, the virus is going to trick the cell, the human cell, into making more viruses. And I'm going to back up a second. Right here, let's go back to this drawing. Go back to your drawing over here in step 1. Right here, it needs a key. Every virus has a key. Okay, so I don't know if the technical term is a key, but I call it a key. And so let's see, this one is COVID-19, but I don't think they actually put the key on the name of it. The previous one that was kind of more of a scare than it was it wasn't as serious as this one, was H1N1. And the H is the key to get in. The H1 is the key that the virus needs to get into a cell, and the N1 is the key that it needs to get back out of a cell. So every virus is going to need those 2 keys in order to survive. First, they have to trick the cell into letting the DNA in, and so they have this key that binds to the cell membrane, the outside of the cell, and that's what allows the virus to put the DNA in. Now, if you train your body to recognize a virus by getting like a flu shot at the beginning of flu season, then it trains your body to recognize that key so that your cells will not let the virus put the DNA inside your cells. And so that's how a vaccination works. It trains your body to recognize this key, and it will not let the virus into your cells. Okay, so there's step 1. The virus has the key to get to your cell. It attaches to your cell membrane. And then step 2, it's going to insert the DNA into your cell. And then step 3, it is going to trick your cell into making more of the DNA of the virus. So in your cell you have these things called ribosomes, and the ribosomes are the factories that can make more DNA, and it can make more everything. So all the proteins needed, the ribosomes can make. And so first it tricks the cell into making more DNA, and then so let's write cell is tricked into making more viral DNA. And then we'll do step 3.5. Then then the DNA is encoded by the RNA to make more of the virus parts. So it'll make more of the spaceship looking things that the DNA is inside of. All right, and then it'll keep making more and more of these until this whole cell fills up with a lot of viruses. So, last step. We'll see if we can do that right here. Step 4. Okay, step 4. Here's your cell, and it is full of these viruses, and it is so full of these viruses that they get the key and they bust out. So they have this key that allows them to bust out of here, and they start going and infecting other cells in your body. And until your body recognizes these viruses, they just keep going from cell to cell and making more of them and destroying more cells, and then also spreading from one organism to another organism and infecting that. Now, is this virus meeting the seven characteristics of all living things? So, is the virus a cell? Technically not. There's no like cell membrane. It doesn't really have the same parts as a cell. Even a simple prokaryotic bacteria cell, this thing doesn't have a cell membrane, and it is not considered a cell. It does have like a vessel that carries DNA though, and so all living things have DNA. It does meet that one. So, number one thing it doesn't meet, it doesn't have a cell. Does it grow and develop? That would be kind of up to interpretation. It doesn't really grow, it doesn't get bigger. Does it develop? Well, here, maybe somebody could argue that it's growing and developing, but really it's not doing it by itself. It cannot do that without the help of another cell. So it's really tricking our cells or another organism's cells into making more of them. And same thing with the reproduce. It's not really reproducing itself, it's tricking our cells into making more of them. So it's an argument that scientists have as to whether it is growing and develop, is it reproducing? And most living things use energy. It's also really not using energy. It is tricking our cell into using the energy in order to make more of them. So it is not meeting all the characteristics of life, although it seems to act like a living thing, and it is making more. It does create more of them, and there's a lot of different kinds of viruses. They do evolve and change. So as this code is read, it is sometimes not read correctly, and little bits are changed, and so some of these viruses that are made end up being slightly different, which makes it harder for our body to recognize them. There's also another, this is the lytic cycle. There's another cycle, it's called the lysogenic cycle, in which the virus actually inserts itself into our DNA in this step 2. And so then a little bit of our DNA sometimes is added to the viral DNA, which can further increase changes and evolution to the virus. So, hey, that's the virus lytic cycle. Step by step, it's pretty easy. The virus gets into the lungs. It infects a lung cell. It's got this key. The key allows the virus to get in. It inserts the DNA. The DNA goes into the cell, and the DNA is read by a ribosome. The cell, step 3, is tricked into making more viral DNA, and then it further makes the capsule that surrounds the virus. A lot of viruses are now made, and there's so many viruses that are made, they end up breaking out. Like I said, they got a key that busts open the cell membrane so they can get out, and then they in turn go to other cells and infect more cells and make more of them. All right, have a good day.